Hello everybody, welcome back to Blue vs. Orange TCG with Christian Young, giving you an ATP-4 deck profile. Not just any deck profile, this is the first place deck for the last one-day event for Season 3, which featured a ATP-4 Legal Full Con event. I want to say there was 14 of us playing there. I was able to take it first, going completely undefeated the whole day and going to 4 rounds. At the end, I'll talk a little bit more about my matchups and whatnot, but I definitely want to jump into the deck profile. And to be exact, I played Aggro Heralds, a very, very aggressive list that in testing did really, really well, and it showed in the tournament. So I'm really excited to bring this to you here. So jumping straight into it. Going over the characters, we have our legend character Megatron, who's a key centerpiece to the strategy here in this list, as well as Cyclonus and Scourge. These 3 characters make up the Heralds as a team. And going into each of them one by one, first starting with Megatron. He's a 5/9/2 in bot mode. He starts in bot mode. Has 2 utility slots, and then if you have no Autobots and no stratagems on your team, and when he is about to be KO'd, he goes down to 8 HP, and then he arises. But before he arises, you actually get to take a matrix of leadership that you own from outside of the game and put it on him, and then you arise. And then, of course, when you arise, you flip him over, and now he is Galvatron. So Galvatron is a Herald leader ranged compared to Megatron's leader range tags. So now he's a Herald. He's a 6/16/2, and again, like Megatron, he has 2 utility slots, which is really good. And then when one of your Decepticons is battling, not just attacks or defense, but battles, and you flip 3 different colored icons in your flips, you can flip 1 more. So it's really good for aggressive strategy. You flip an orange, green, and a black, or a white, or anything. You get to flip 1 more. It's essentially like a pseudo bold one, tough one that can't get negated. It's really, really good. In our list, we are mainly an orange deck, so we don't run a whole lot of diverse colors in the deck. We do make it a point to try to hit this trigger by playing a couple more orange-black cards, focusing on the orange greens, a lot of white greens, things of that nature. And then these 2 characters will show that there's actually a fair amount of whites in this deck. You can almost call this an orange-white deck because of so many white cards that you're actually trying to run in the list. But jumping into the next character, this is Cyclonus. Cyclonus in alt mode is a 4/12/2, and then he has a Sea Spray or Highbrow type of ability, where each character with the highest number of stars on your team has Brave while untapped. So for example, if you were going second, your team starts off like this, because Megatron has 10 stars compared to the 9 and 5 stars that Cyclonus and Scourge have. Megatron is going to have Brave right away, so they're going to be forced to go into your legend character, which is exactly what you're going to want to have happen, so you can get that arise trigger kind of early. And then when you flip Cyclonus from bot to alt mode, you get to reveal the top card of your deck. If it has a white pip on it, you may play that card. This ability is mainly it's definitely not the most powerful ability in the lineup. The fact that you give Megatron Brave is the best part about it. Revealing a white card off the top of your deck potentially is really good. It doesn't necessarily. It can sometimes win you games, sometimes it doesn't. It hardly hits. I hit it probably twice over the course of the whole tournament, which I think is actually more than I ever expected. But again, it's not bad though. It's definitely warranted flipping him to alt mode every now and then, especially if you have a free flip to offer. And then when you flip to bot mode, he is a Herald ranged, and I forgot to mention again, in alt mode, he is a Herald spaceship ranged, so he can be used with UFO if you so desire. 5/12/2. When you flip to this mode, each of your characters gets bold 1 until end of turn, not just your Heralds, but each of your characters. And then after that, you may flip one of your other Heralds from alt mode to bot mode. So going first, when you flip Cyclonus, you flip him here to bot mode. Now you have the option to give everyone bold 1, and you give the option to flip Scourge to bot mode as well. This is really good in full constructed, because this deck is tailored to a full constructed turn environment. This deck would look, in my opinion, a lot different in Titan 1, but because it's full con, it's going to see a little bit different play. In full con specifically, you can play mission briefing. So if you go second, Megatron's still alive, you flip Cyclonus, flip Scourge, and play mission briefing, you draw 3 right away, which is really, really good. And another good reason why it's only in full con. But Cyclonus is kind of the weird middle character. His abilities are really, really good. He's definitely your least impactful attacker, which I don't want to say is big, because he still hits like a truck, right? Being able to flip and give everyone bold 1 is a very strong ability, especially going first. Being able to flip and give your Megatron bold 1 already with 5 attack to swing in right away is really strong. He can be also be a good middle game finisher because he still has the 5 attack on him. Again, another solid character. And then last but not least, we have Scourge here. So Scourge is our 5-drop. He definitely is he's definitely one of the most impactful characters on the team, ironically being a 5-star, which I think is really cool. So he's a Herald spaceship specialist. He's not ranged like the other two. He is a specialist. 3/10/2, and then he has stealth against characters with 14 stars or higher, or against 14-star or higher characters. And then when you flip to this mode, you get to move 1 damage off of one of your Heralds to an enemy. But if you choose an enemy that has 14 stars or more, so like a Combiner, Sky Shadow, Overlord, you get to move 2 instead. So obviously this character right here, just based off this alt mode ability, is obviously very strong. It's tailored to kind of combat that really, really tall format that we had for a little while at near the end of ATP-3, where you saw decks like Overlord, Galaxy Prime, Combiners, Omega Supreme, Menasor ripping up the format. So this guy completely counters him. Or not even counters, but it definitely has a good leverage against those really tall teams to help kind of diversify the format. And then when you flip him to bot mode, he's now at 3/10/1. He has bold 2, so bold 2 on a 5-star is like really, really strong. Something we haven't necessarily seen throughout the course of the game. The closest we've seen is like Steel Jaw with 1 less health and native bold 1, but he does give it your 10-drop bold 1, so it seems like it's a lot. It's definitely in my opinion, the strongest aspect about the character is the fact that he has bold 2. But I would say the second part of this text box is also really good, where the first time when one of your characters attacks each turn and you flip at least 2 white pips on your attack, you get to draw a card after the battle. So even if the character you're attacking with isn't Scourge, so say if you flip Cyclonus, so say if you go first, your team looks like this. You flip Cyclonus, give everyone bold 1, then you can flip Scourge. And then if Megatron attacks here, and with the bold 1, he hits 2 white pips, you get to draw a card immediately after. This is kind of what I was talking about, how this deck is almost kind of tailored to be like an orange-white deck, because whites are so prevalent to like the main strategies of the characters. Scourge being able to fill up your hand really well with option cards, or just options in general with like upgrades and actions off of just attacking if you flip the necessary amount of whites, which, levies the downside of playing a lot of whites in orange decks, because if you have a lot of bold, you're going to be flipping a lot of whites. That's a bummer because it's going to be taken away from your attack. But if you get to draw a card to replace it, it's not so bad. And then being able to potentially hit a white pip off the top of your deck with Cyclonus is also really big. All in all, these characters are super solid as a team. The Megatron and the Megatron/Galvatron doesn't have to play with these guys specifically. I think there's a lot of lineups you can play with this guy. But all 3 of these characters are in my opinion very strong characters on their own, and having them play together really well, it just makes the deck feel so powerful, and it's such a fun deck to play. But those are the characters. So going on to the battle cards. So we did run a 41 card list, I believe. Going on to the main deck first, so we're going to be going over the actions first, specifically the pumps. So first off, we got 3 of a new card from ATP-4, Show Mastery. Show Mastery is a fantastic card in this list. What it reads is one of your characters gets +2 attack to end a turn, and then if you have a legend mode character on your team, you get to draw 2 cards. So this also helps like a lot of the aggro strategies that were kind of struggling in ATP-3, where they ran out of gas so quickly. This card not only adds value to your attacker by being able to give him +2 attack, but if you have the Galvatron on your team at the same time, you're able to draw 2 cards. So imagine being able to like play this. If you like, you don't even have to like play this just as a pump. You can play this as like a means of like being able to draw cards to set up for a following turn. Like you can just give, I don't know, Cyclonus +2, and then you can draw 2 if you have the Galvatron, potentially search for a weapon or another utility type of a card to play. This card is honestly so good. It's probably, in my opinion, one of the best cards in the list, and it's kind of funny to say that, being it's one of the first cards we're profiling. But that's how good I think this card is. I think it's one of the best cards in this set. It's that impressive. I also think you can play this card outside of a legend deck and just have it be the straight +2, and I think that's really good as well. I'll put these guys right here. Along with them, the Show of Masteries, we have 2 Valiant Efforts. Not only is it a white, the white pip is very important for, again, the strategy of the deck. It also allows Galvatron or Megatron, because they're both leaders in both modes, to be able to have +3, and then because you have 2 range characters, you can deal damage. This card's just so much value in this list. Like, this card is just so impressive. I don't want to run 3 of them. I thought 3 was just going to be a little too cloggy. 1 didn't feel like enough for how good this card was. Because worst case scenarios, you can still play this as just like a ping, as just like a white zap, which, I mean, there's worse things. If you need it, you have it, right? But this card is just so excellent. I think it just does so much for the deck. Next up, we have 2 Superchargers. So Supercharge used to be Armored Assault in the list. I do think Armored Assault is probably still a better option for the list instead of the Superchargers if you wanted to run those instead. This is what I'm trying to say is this is like a really big flat spot in terms of like what pumps you can use, right? I opted for the Superchargers more so as kind of like a test or a proof of concept. Going into full constructed still has things such as Sky Shadow, Quake, you know, like a lot of the orange black decks from Wave 5, Menasor. There's a lot of decks in full constructed format that I didn't think we're gonna be running end hostilities, except for Menasor and potentially Overlord. But I didn't expect to see it, and I thought the Supercharge, being able to try to hit multiple colors on the Galvatron swings for his ability, or try to hit some extra whites to draw cards, just add a little bit extra utility that I really wanted to try with this card. Playing this card did blank an attack really badly once for me, because like the Bolt 3 actually didn't get me a single orange pip once in the day. So again, like I said, this card's very much a flex spot. I chose to run 2 of these. You can run 2 Reckless Charge instead if you rather, or 2 Armored Assaults. You can even do Leaving the Battle if you want to lose. This could be anything you want, really. Just about anything you want. Alright, and then our last pump that we played is 1 Nothing to Lose. Nothing to Lose is another new card from ATP-4. It's a star card, so we do have 1 star left over on the team. We're playing it for this single card. We can't play Villainous Spotlight, of course, because of Megatron's Arise condition. And if you don't know what this card does, so it's a white pip for every trait. Again, another good white pump for Cyclones to potentially hit off the top. And then it's an orange Seeker pip and a blue Wrecker pip. So the other 2 pips don't really matter to us, but it is nice because you can flip this while you have Galvatron out on the field. And then this already makes you flip an extra card because you do have the 3 icons. But more importantly is the fact that it is probably one of the strongest pump spells or pump actions we've seen in the game so far, which makes sense as a star card. So first thing, and importantly, when this card is in your hand, if your opponent's card would cause you to scrap this card, instead you reveal it, and then this card isn't scrapped. So for example, if they try to Espionage Orange and they see my hand of this in like a Supercharge, they do not have the pleasure of being able to hit this, because if they do, I can just say I reveal it and then it doesn't get scrapped. Same with like 2-pronged attack with Overlord. I choose 2 cards, so say if I had the Supercharge and this only in hand, I still have to get rid of the Supercharge, but I could reveal this as one of the cards and be like, okay, this isn't scrapped. And so that alone makes this really, really good against a lot of hand disruptions that we've seen lately in the previous format. But not only that, you also give one of your characters +2 Bolt 2 until end of turn, and then you get to flip a character from bot or body mode to alt mode. So obviously this card is incredibly powerful. Being able to give like Scourge +2 Bolt 2 or Galvatron +2 Bolt 2, then be able to flip Scourge back to move a damage, or flip Cyclonus to alt mode, try to filter out a card off the top if it's a white, but then flip them back for the turn to give your characters another Bolt 1. Super, super, super good. There are other options of star cards you can play. I think Bullseye Aegis is totally a fine card to play here because Raven Stealth is really good and it's an extra double orange. Even the Score potentially could see play, or even Leap of Faith. There's a lot of options, I think, in this slop. I wanted to try this, and it has, in testing, it never disappointed me. I actually never saw it the whole day, but I can tell you from testing that this card is bonkers. Alright, so that is the pumps here. That was 8 pumps. I'm just going to set these off to the side here. And then for some of our 2-ofs, we played 2 Take by Surprise because it is full constructed. You don't want to be surprised when you see a Jetfire deck. Jetfire with I Don't Believe in Destiny has definitely gone down in the tier list in my opinion. You know, not a lot of people play it still. I think the power level of it has definitely like not seen the light of day in previous formats, but I didn't want to be surprised still by running into it or a Megatron living weapon with his stratagem. Ironically, there was a Jetfire who was playing Jetfire OA with like Merc B and Scourge, and they were able to get fourth. I never ran into it, but if I did, I would have been prepared with the 2 take by surprises. And it's still like a pretty solid like form of removal, and is good synergy with one of the weapons we play, which, spoiler, is P-Box. But that aside, we also played 2 energy transfer. Energy transfer, I originally was playing at 1. Being able to transfer off all the damage off of Galvatron when he arises to another character is really, really good, because Galvatron is definitely your strongest character in the lineup. There was times where like this felt good to play, and other times it just felt like I should have opted to never play it. I did bring it to 2. I used to be playing at 1. I made a last minute decision here to try to see it a little bit more often. I don't think it necessarily matters. I think you could still like take out this second energy transfer if you didn't feel the need for it, or if you really, really wanted it, you can still play it. And then we also played 2 rollouts. Rollouts is super, super good in this list. Not only is it 2 colors, which is good for trying to trigger Galvatron's flip ability, or on battle ability, but also because you can roll out Cyclonus and Scourge. And because Cyclonus flips Scourge to bot mode at the beginning of like the game typically, you can flip Cyclonus, give Bold 1 to everyone, flip Scourge. You can roll out, move a damage from Scourge, potentially get a card from Cyclonus, then flip Cyclonus, but give everyone Bold 1 again, and then flip Scourge back. So this card can actually be like a pretty strong power play in the deck. This card served me incredibly, incredibly well. One of the best plays I saw in the list, or in the tournament, was against a Herald's Mirror, and I roll out, played the rollout, moved the damage from Scourge, flip Cyclonus, revealed a P-Box out the top, played the P-Box, flip Cyclonus back to give everyone extra Bold 1, swing and hit the P-Box trigger. It was excellent, absolutely excellent. Excuse me, I think if you're going to be playing Heralds, you definitely need to consider running this to a certain number. That's how good it was. So there's some of the utility cards. We played 4 secret actions. We played 2 Withdrawal Protocol and 2 Hold the Line. Withdrawal Protocol is another new card from ATP-4. Oops, I'm dropping cards. The card is basically a secret action, orange and black, but the black does have a leader pip to it. And then when your opponent plays an action or upgrade from their hand, you may reveal this card, and then one of your characters gets stealth until end of turn. And if you have a legend mode character on the field, each of your characters gets 1+1 defense till end of turn. This card is amazing in legend decks. You should not be surprised to see this. It's something that you should consider when your opponent is playing legend deck and they set a secret action now. Because what this card can do is, one of the big things is it gets around counter espionage. So you can't like counter espionage withdrawal protocol, because when you do, it automatically triggers withdrawal protocol. Because you played a card from your hand, you reveal it, give stealth to one of your characters, and even if they get rid of the withdrawal protocol, it goes away at that point. The stealth doesn't go away because it lasts till end of turn, even after the card is no longer up on the field. The card is incredibly strong. It gets around never a dull moment. It's the only way to really get around this card is either A, playing cards off the top of your deck, or scrap. So like Record Wheeljack, playing a card from the top of the deck doesn't trigger this because it specifically needs to be from hand. And not playing anything at all. If you suspect a withdrawal protocol has been set, you can just opt to not play anything, which I know sounds super crazy, but depending on the situation, it might just be better to not let your opponent have stealth on any character that they choose, than playing an action or upgrade from hand to try to get the value from there. Sometimes the most basic value is just not playing anything at all and biding your time. And this card definitely kind of like pushes that strategy a little bit more, pushes that thought process more. And then the other 2 is 2 Hold the Line. We wanted more greens on the list, we wanted more whites, and I think this card, I'm glad I ran it at 2, because in full constructed there are multiple Type Master decks, so things like Quake, again, Sky Shadow. The heads really falter to Hold the Line, and I think you need this card in a full con list. And it's also a white, right? Like, this is good against opposing Scourges. Being able to hold the line against Scourge and only take 5 is still like a really strong thing you can do. I think in Titan 1, if you wanted to adapt a Heralds list to Titan 1, I wouldn't even bother main decking these at all. That gives you room for another 2 whites if you so choose, which is really good, but definitely was really good in my list. And then the last 4 actions we played 1 mission briefing, 1 mag ray, counter espionage, or gaming crash, and 1 steamroll. So real quick, just going over the cards. Mission briefing, absolutely insane. Of course, it's one of the most craziest cards ever printed, in my opinion. There's a reason why it's only legal in full constructed. The white-green is just perfect for the deck. Being able to draw 3 really early because of the Cyclonus and Scourge flip ability is super, super good. I've seen people run this at 2. I think it's totally okay to run it at 2. I didn't want to, because I think the deck just draws enough cards naturally that I think just like having that slot be a second mission briefing is just kind of asking to be a little bit greedy, but that's just my opinion. Only 1 Mega Ray and only 1 Gaming Crash. It's tough to play non-orange cards in the deck because you are pretty much a bold facing deck in the first place, so you definitely you want to make sure that you're hitting oranges off the top right. You know, the Gaming Crash, you want some form of direct damage because you don't want to be attacking into things twice if you can. So the Gaming Crash is good there. You never know against opposing Autobots, and you're frail enough that you don't want to play multiple Mag Rays, but the 1 Mag Ray I thought was really good for me throughout the day. And then the Steamroll. This is the card I'm least enthused about. I think in testing I was running 2 of these, and it felt pretty decent, but I hardly ever saw it in my hand, even in testing. Especially, of course after bumped it down to 1, but I just and oftentimes in the tournament, I played it once in the tournament and it didn't even matter because the character, I had 2 attacks and my non-steamroll character accidentally killed the first character I was looking to steamroll with my Galvatron swing, so it didn't even matter. I think you can get rid of this card for another Gaming Crash or Mag Ray or some other burn card in my opinion. The card's not bad, I just think it's better off in the sideboard in my opinion than actually mainboarded. Alright, so that is the actions. Moving on to the upgrades. So starting off with the weapons, of course we're an orange deck, so of course we're running 3 Grenade Launcher, self-explanatory. +4 weapon, orange pip, fantastic, gotta have it. We are playing 2 Erratic Lightnings. I opted to run the Erratic Lightning because even though the -1 defense does hurt a lot, I think just by virtue of just being, just trying to aggro as much as possible, I think you still need this card to a certain extent, either as a 1 or 2. I didn't want to play Fusion Board because I wanted to not keep my orange count anywhere below 30. We're at 31 oranges, which is more like 30 functional oranges because one of them is nothing to lose. So I think you still need to run this card. 1 Scoundrel's Blaster, of course, even though it's blue, having the green is really important. The 2 colors can trigger Galvatron's ability a lot easier. Just a fantastic card to see. Only 1 Sturdy Javelin. The Sturdy Javelin, I think, could also... one of these Erratic Lightnings could turn into a second Sturdy Javelin. Sturdy Javelin was really good for me in the day. I was only running 1. There was times I wish I was running 2, but it never felt completely necessary. Because playing 9 whites, I believe, in the deck list, that's a lot of whites, and you don't want to go over too much. In my opinion, it's another balancing game for an aggro deck of how much of one color is too much. And I think playing only the 1 Javelin for me felt pretty fine. And then a Howling Howitzer. So kind of going back to the Erratic Lightning, why are we playing this over the 3rd Erratic Lightning? Well, kind of for what we brought up earlier, the -1 defense is super annoying, right? Sometimes it can kill off your character by 1, but at the same time you still sometimes want a weapon to stick. This doesn't give an orange to Scourge, which is kind of a bummer. But the fact that it still have 2 colors, which does help trigger Galvatron, is pretty good. +2 is still something that is very relevant as an attacker, especially in a deck like this. So I think 1 was fine. I think I like the ratio of 2 Erratic, 1 Howitzer. You can go up or down any of those numbers, but this is what I ran personally. And then our last weapon is, of course, the Paralyzo Box. I think this card just fits so perfectly in the list. The deck wants to run a lot of whites. You have 2 ranged characters. Being able to get another green weapon is really strong, especially in full con where there's a lot more mono-colored lists running around out there. The orange-black lists, the Jetfire straight blue list. There's a lot of these types of decks running around. I think Paralyzo Box really fits that strategy, fits against that meta really well, as well as Take by Surprise just being such an awesome combo card with Paralyzo Box. I think it was excellent. I know people disagree with me on my love and possibly addiction to Paralyzer Box, but you know what? It's not a problem. I can quit whenever I want. Alright, so those are the weapons. We're running about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 weapons. A little short for an aggro deck, but I think it's totally fine. It seemed fine for me most of the day. And then just put that there. Running through the armors, of course we got the 3 improvised shields for double oranges. Not too much to say about that. And then we got 1 Bastion Shield, 1 Scrapper Gauntlets, and 1 Force Field. Going back, this used to be a second Force Field, but because of moving some of the whites around, I had to take the second one out for a Scrapper Gauntlets. I really wanted to mainboard the second Force Field because I think Force Field is really, really good. But the one treated me fine because you only really need to see one half the time for a lot of aggro mirrors anyway to change the tide or the tempo of the game. And overall, I think I really like this list of armors here. And again, there is a lot of room for exploration and innovation, like how you want to adjust a lot of these card ratios or upgrades choices. But this is what I went with, and it served me pretty well. Especially the Scrapper Gauntlets. Scrapper Gauntlets is such an underrated card. The fact that not only does it give you +1, but it also can blow up a weapon. Is such a big tempo back to a lot of decks that are running things like Energon Axe or the blasters, or backup beam for any OA decks, because there was a couple OA decks around the tournament. This card just is so much value. I don't understand why people aren't running more of this card personally. And the last bit of our deck profile is the utilities, and we're just going to go straight forward to Stealthiness, 1 Absorption Core, and 1 Spy Satellite Uplink. So going at it one at a time. The 2 Stealthiness were probably one of the best cards in the deck. This is a last-minute decision to put 2 of these in here, and man, this was like the best card ever. Being able to get this in your opening hand to swing with Megatron, and if they don't kill the Megatron, put this on like your Scourge, swing with Scourge, and they're forced to attack into the Megatron is so good. And now you have a character that has stealth throughout the course of the game as well, which is also like something like really, really important. I think Stealthiness and Bravery is going to be so important coming on in the upcoming metagame, which is why you're going to see cards like this start to be mainboard a lot. Spy Satellite Uplink. Just being a green that can stop Raven Stealth is really, really good. It's going to be really relevant in the upcoming metagame. I think it's going to be a hard card not to try to find room for in decks. It's kind of going to be close to probably the next Bastion Shield in my opinion. And then 1 Absorption Core. We didn't run the Hollow Matter because we already were running 6 armors, but I just did still want one of these. I think Absorption Core is super good too. Being able to stuff this into utility, which still makes room for you being able to play like a Bastion Shield or a Force Field onto your Galvatron. This also like prevents characters from getting your non-legend mode character to arise out of combat, which is important because you don't want that to happen. And when it blows up, you get to ping someone. This card's just like so much value. I really, really enjoyed playing this card, and I kind of wish I got to run a second of it. But again, color density is a big thing in deck building, and I just didn't have the room to put a second like blank green in it. All right, so that is the main deck. Moving on to the sideboard real quick here. The first and most important card in any Heralds list in the sideboard is the Matrix of Leadership. So, focus there, camera. The most important card in the sideboard is definitely the Matrix of Leadership. Megatron, when he arises, you get to grab it and put it on him with ignoring all restrictions. Of course, with WotC rulings, the card from outside of the game has to be in your sideboard. So even though you only get like 9 free spaces of the sideboard, and this has to take up your 10th spot, is kind of a bummer. I think it's totally fine because the value that the Matrix gives to your whole team and just your attack like lineup is incredibly strong. Galvatron giving +1 to every one of your characters is really good, allowing him being able to flip extra cards on attack and defense with his multiple colors trigger. The damage ramps up so quickly. Like, it's honestly wild like how much this card like affects the game. It's also, but I will say it is rather annoying when you play it and you go to game 2 and you forget to take the Matrix out of your deck. It happens, but it's just something you got to work with. So the Matrix, for sure, and then Lock on Laser. I didn't expect to see any Mana Sword there, but in case there were, I didn't want to be caught with my pants down, for lack of a better word, and didn't have a Lock on Lasers in here. That card is still really good. It's really good against Sky Shadow too. Scourge and this in tandem with your team is really, really mean to Sky Shadow, which we want to be mean to Sky Shadow because that guy's a jerk. The second force field, I brought it in quite a bit because I saw a lot of aggro over the course of the day, so I did bring this out often. Usually swapped a hold line for this depending on what the team makeup was. I did play a Hollow Matter in the sideboard just in case if there was like a quick list that I needed the second like form of anti-damage protection, and I kind of wanted to diversify a little bit. I like to diversify cards that do the same thing. And so, like, I don't like to have 2 Absorption Core or 2 Hollow Matter. I like to have 1 of each just because it keeps my options open to me as a player. If I have, like, the utility spot open for stealthiness, I'd rather have this, you know, it just, the option is there. And then a card you probably haven't seen too much since ATP-2, Spotlight. So it's a star card, +1 attack, +1 defense, orange-blue. Enemies can't use stealth. So if you put this on any one of your characters, it basically does what Spy Satellite does, except for stealth only, but it applies to every one of your characters, not just the character that's upgraded. There was a deck I was testing that I definitely want to do a profile on sometime about like a stealth Orion Pax list that really focused heavily on stealth on your characters. I want to be prepared just in case I saw it to, you know, have a really nice hard counter to it. And it's just an easy swap of nothing to lose for this, so I thought it was totally worth putting in. I didn't play it, but I'm glad I still kept it in here. Alright, so those are the upgrades, and then the actions. 1 battlefield scan, again, kind of like what I was talking about with Hollow Matter. We're already running 1 mainboard Spy Satellite uplink, but I like to keep my diversity of options open, so I wanted to run. So I ran this in the board as well. I didn't take it out too much, but it was definitely there as an option. I'm glad I kept it. 2 belligerents. Something you noticed, I wasn't mainboarding any belligerents. I didn't expect to see a lot of blue lists coming into the tournament personally, and frankly, I wasn't like super concerned about blue or control anyway, that I felt the need to put to mainboard a belligerents. I'm not sure if that was a good or a bad call, but it ended up working for me, and I'm glad I did it. I never brought him in throughout the whole day, but again, it's just a nice safety valve. 1 counter espionage, kind of like the belligerents. I didn't mainboard a counter espionage because I just didn't feel the need to have it. My deck doesn't get hit by hold line very hard, except for of course like Scourge attack, but oftentimes I think most of the time it's not a big deal. So if they do start bringing in hold lines or you know, and hostilities or dads, I did have that option to be available as well. And then more of a meta pick, 1 reflect damage. This is a meta call for potentially seeing a lot of OA lists because I saw a lot of people getting really excited and talk about overwhelming advantage decks that could be played with some of the cards in set 4. So I just wanted this to be kind of like tucked in my back pocket to, you know, set thinking it's like a hold the line or a withdraw protocol. They try to OA me and I hit them for 15. Never happened. Never played against OA today, or Saturday, but you know, I'm still glad I had it. It was just like a nice little thing to tuck in the back pocket. Alright, so that is the deck list, and just to give like a quick little tournament report of what I ended up playing in the day. So my first round opponent was Servini, playing a really unique Seekers list. Seekers has been kind of an interesting on-the-rise archetype from the last ATP-3 event. This one was a really, really weird list. It was pretty mixed. If you can even call it that. It ran a ton of blanks and really focused on aerial superiority and the Starscream trigger burn. When I have to tell you, it was surprisingly like really effective. It was actually like my toughest, like my closest game of the day was against that Seekers list. There was definitely a point in the game where like if I didn't top deck a good weapon right here, I wasn't gonna win that game. You know, I ended up getting the grenade launcher. It helped out, but that was a really, really cool list. I kind of want to talk about, I want to make a video talking about that archetype here in a little bit, so maybe I'll be on the lookout for that. And then round 2, I played against Ogar in a Herald Mirror. You know, that Herald Mirror is really interesting. You're constantly flinging, you know, having these huge, gigantic swings against your opponent, trying to find as many like tempo cancelers as you could, like Force Field, Hold the Line, or even Gaming Crash to get the Arise out of combat. There was a point in game 2 where I actually, on my second attack, didn't get the his Megatron to Arise, and that was actually really bad for him because it didn't see like a stealthiness or anything to keep me off of his other characters. And I was able to like valiant effort the Megatron to Arise and attack into the Galvatron. It was really, really rough. Same thing happened in round 3. I played against Scott, who was also on Heralds. I think you know, the Heralds list he was running was quite a bit different than Ogar's. I think he actually was on like 1 or 2 OAs, but still maintained like a really heavy aggressive shell. Again, that a lot of the same thing happened in that list where like we were trying to like find our own like ways to kind of mess with the other person's tempo, especially when going first or second. I went second, I believe, both those games, which I thought was really good for me. Because he wasn't ever able to get the Megatron to arise out of that first attack, so he had to sink 2 attacks into the Megatron / Galvatron. And then finals, I played against Ansel, who was on a really interesting Ghost Starscream orange blacklist. It was Ghost Starscream with Horrible and Fangry, Horrible with Grax, and Fangry with Infinitus. And I know you're probably thinking like, oh, that's not that interesting. It's, you know, it sounds like Volcon. It is Volcon style characters of, you know, staples in the Fangry and the Bat, or Fangry and the Bull, right? But what I kind of liked about that list was that both his heads, you know, being Grax and Infinitus, were pretty relevant attackers. And so the deck wasn't really focused around all this direct damage like Quake or Horrible Sky Shadow is, but it was really set up more to be like a really like big value attacker list. Like every one of his attacks, like he kind of made like have a like value in a certain way. Like every, like, you know, like you see like a crab and you're not too concerned about a crab. You're kind of afraid of an Infinitus though, with like 3 attack or 2 attack bold 1, like 2 attack bold 1 or whatever. Is, you know, it's not much different, but it's still different than Kreb. He's got 3 health. You can't Cammy crash him out of the way. That list is actually like a really tricky list to kind of navigate and take down. I lost against it a lot in testing, and then I made some changes to the deck list after testing against it so much that I think really helped me in the matchup. You know, Hold the Line's really good in those games. Force Field. The fact that he is orange black meant that like sometimes his attacks didn't get enough damage into me as much as it needed, while I was still being able to swing for such high damage numbers most of the time. And I think that was what really helped me pull out the win in that game. And that was really the one-day event. It was a release, you know, being the first event for ATP-4. I was really excited to want to go in and try to set the meta with a deck. You know, I wanted to win, but I was happy if I top 4'd. I ended up winning, which is super great. I think these guys you're going to be seeing a lot of. I think these guys are excellent. You know, obviously, like, they're good in full con. I'm sure they're also going to be very good in Titan 1, with a slightly more tweaked and unique deck list that doesn't have to consider the full con constraints of the metagame and whatnot. I think if you're looking to play Heralds, I think it's a great choice. And overall, I can't gush more about this deck. It is so much fun, guys. Like, you know, being able to hit so hard and draw all these cards and like do all this flipping, and it's a great deck. I really recommend you guys check it out. I hope you guys are really excited for season 4 like I am. This is a great way to set off to the season 4. I believe July. That month-long event is going to be full con as well, if I remember what some of the people have been talking about in the Discord. So be on the lookout for some more lists coming from me to kind of prepare for that full con event. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a great day. All right, toodaloo.